Sarah Martinez stood in the driveway of her new house and smiled. The morning sun felt warm on her face. She looked at the neat rows of houses in Willowbrook subdivision. Each house had a perfect green lawn. Each mailbox stood straight and clean. Everything looked like a picture from a magazine. "This is it, Rex," she said to the big German shepherd sitting beside her. "This is our new home." Rex tilted his head and looked at her with smart brown eyes. His tail wagged once. Next to him sat Luna, a smaller but equally alert Belgian Malinois. Both dogs wore special collars that showed they were retired military working dogs. Sarah had spent 8 years in the Army. She worked as a K9 handler. That meant she trained with dogs and took care of them. Rex and Luna had been her partners. They had served together in Afghanistan and Iraq. They had saved many lives. Now all three of them were done with military service. They wanted to start a new life. David, Sarah's husband, came out of the house carrying boxes. He was also a veteran. He had served as a medic in the same unit as Sarah. That was how they met. David loved the dogs almost as much as Sarah did. "The moving truck should be here soon," David said. He set the boxes down and wiped sweat from his face. "I called the HOA office. They said someone will come by later to welcome us to the neighborhood." Sarah nodded. HOA meant Homeowners Association. It was a group that made rules for the neighborhood. They wanted to keep everything looking nice and clean. Sarah thought this was a good idea. She liked order and rules. The military had taught her that rules helped everyone get along. "Did you tell them about Rex and Luna?" Sarah asked. "Yes," David said. "I explained they are retired military dogs. I showed them all the papers. The woman on the phone said it would be fine." Sarah felt good about this. She had worried that some people might not understand about the dogs. Rex and Luna were not pets. They were highly trained working animals. They had special skills. They knew how to find bombs and track bad people. They also knew how to protect their handlers. But they were also gentle and well-behaved. The moving truck arrived at 10 in the morning. 3 men got out and started carrying furniture into the house. Rex and Luna watched from the front porch. They did not bark or move from their spots. Sarah had trained them to stay calm around strangers. Mrs. Johnson from next door came over to say hello. She was an older woman with gray hair and a kind smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Mrs. Johnson said. "I'm Betty Johnson. I live right there." She pointed to the house with blue shutters. "Thank you," Sarah said. "I'm Sarah Martinez. This is my husband, David." Mrs. Johnson looked at the dogs. "What beautiful animals," she said. "Are they friendly?" "Very friendly," Sarah said. "They are retired military dogs. Their names are Rex and Luna." Mrs. Johnson's eyes got wide. "Military dogs? How wonderful. My late husband was in the Navy. He always said military dogs were the smartest and bravest animals in the world." Sarah smiled. She liked Mrs. Johnson already. "Would you like to meet them?" "Oh, yes," Mrs. Johnson said. Sarah gave a small hand signal. Rex and Luna stood up and walked over slowly. They sat down in front of Mrs. Johnson and waited. "You can pet them," Sarah said. "They love attention." Mrs. Johnson reached out and petted Rex's head. His tail wagged. Then she petted Luna. "They are so well behaved," she said. "You must have trained them very well." "We trained together for many years," Sarah said. "They saved my life more than once." Mrs. Johnson nodded with respect. "Thank you for your service," she said. "All of you." After Mrs. Johnson left, more neighbors came by. Most of them were friendly. They asked questions about the dogs and seemed interested in their military background. Sarah began to feel like Willowbrook would be a good place to live, but not everyone seemed happy to see them. Sarah noticed a woman across the street watching from her window. The woman had blonde hair and wore expensive clothes. She kept looking at the dogs with a frown. When Sarah waved, the woman stepped away from the window. "Who lives in that house?" Sarah asked Mrs. Johnson when she came back with homemade cookies. Mrs. Johnson looked where Sarah pointed. "That's Karen Whitfield," she said. Her voice got quiet. "She's the president of the HOA. She's very particular about the rules." Sarah noticed that Mrs. Johnson did not sound happy when she talked about Karen Whitfield, but Sarah did not worry too much. She and David always followed rules. They kept their property clean. They were quiet neighbors. She could not think of any reason for problems. The moving men finished their work by afternoon. Sarah and David spent the rest of the day unpacking boxes and setting up furniture. They made a special area in the backyard for Rex and Luna. It had a strong fence and soft grass. They also set up food and water bowls in the kitchen. As the sun started to set, Sarah took the dogs for a walk around the neighborhood. She wanted them to learn the new area. She also wanted to meet more neighbors. The streets were quiet and clean. All the houses looked expensive and well kept. Children played in some yards while their parents watched. Sarah thought it looked like a safe place to raise a family. They walked past a small park in the center of the neighborhood. Other dog owners were there with their pets. Sarah thought about bringing Rex and Luna here to play, but she would wait a few days. She wanted them to settle into their new home first. On the way back to their house, Sarah saw Karen Whitfield standing in her driveway. The woman was talking on her phone. When she saw Sarah and the dogs, she stopped talking and stared. Sarah smiled and waved again. This time Karen Whitfield did not step away. Instead, she kept staring with cold eyes. Rex and Luna noticed the woman watching them. Their ears went up, but they kept walking calmly beside Sarah. They were trained to notice everything around them. They could sense when someone did not like them. "It's okay, boys," Sarah said softly. "We're just going home." Back at their house, Sarah and David ate dinner on their back porch. Rex and Luna lay nearby, relaxed and happy. The evening air was cool and pleasant. Sarah felt peaceful for the first time in months. "I think we made the right choice," David said. "This seems like a good place." Sarah agreed. She looked at their new house and yard. She looked at her husband and dogs. Everything felt right. She had no idea that some people in Willowbrook did not want them there. She did not know that. Trouble was already starting. All she knew was that she finally felt like she was home. 3 weeks after moving to Willowbrook, Sarah found the first letter in her mailbox. It was from the HOA. The letter said her grass was too long. It needed to be cut within 3 days, or she would get a fine. Sarah walked around her yard with the letter in her hand. She looked at the grass carefully. It was the same height as all the other yards on the street, maybe even shorter than some. She did not understand why she got this letter. David came outside and read the letter over her shoulder. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "We just cut the grass 2 days ago." "I know," Sarah said. "Look at the Johnson's yard. Look at the Smith's yard. Their grass is longer than ours." But Sarah did not want to cause trouble. She was new to the neighborhood. Maybe she had missed something. She borrowed Mrs. Johnson's lawnmower and cut the grass again. It was now so short that it looked almost bald. 2 days later, another letter came. This one said her mailbox was not the right color. The HOA rules said all mailboxes must be black. Sarah's mailbox was black. She had painted it black before they moved in. Sarah walked to her mailbox and looked at it closely. It was definitely black. She looked at other mailboxes on the street. Some were dark blue, some were dark green, some were brown. Only a few were actually black. "This is getting strange," David said when he saw the second letter. "Why are they picking on us?" "I don't know," Sarah said. "But let's just follow the rules. I don't want any problems." She bought new black paint and painted the mailbox again. Now it was so black it almost shined. The third letter came a week later. This one was about Rex and Luna. It said the dogs were making too much noise. It said neighbors had complained about barking. The letter said Sarah had to keep the dogs inside or get rid of them. This letter made Sarah angry. Rex and Luna hardly ever barked. They were trained to be quiet. Sarah had been watching them carefully since they moved in. They only barked when the doorbell rang or when strangers came too close to the house. Even then, they only barked a few times. Sarah went to see Mrs. Johnson. "Have you heard Rex and Luna barking?" she asked. Mrs. Johnson shook her head. "No, dear. Those dogs are quieter than most cats. I've never heard them make noise," Sarah asked 3 other neighbors. They all said the same thing. The dogs were not noisy at all. Someone is lying about us, Sarah told David that night. Someone wants us to get rid of the dogs. Or someone wants us to leave, David said. His face looked serious. The letters kept coming. One said their car was parked wrong in their own driveway. One said their trash cans were the wrong color. One said their house number was too big. Every complaint was silly. Every complaint was about something that other neighbors were also doing. Sarah started taking pictures. She took photos of her grass next to the neighbor's grass. She took photos of her mailbox next to other mailboxes. She took photos of other people's trash cans and car parking. She wanted proof that she was being treated unfairly. One evening, Sarah was in her backyard with Rex and Luna. They were playing fetch with a tennis ball. The dogs were having fun, but they were not making much noise. Sarah heard voices from the yard behind hers. "Those people don't belong here," a woman's voice said. Sarah recognized it as Karen Whitfield. "I know," said another woman. "This used to be such a nice neighborhood." "Those dogs are dangerous," Karen said. "Military dogs are trained to attack people. What if they hurt someone's child?" "Can't we make them leave?" the other woman asked. "I'm working on it," Karen said. "I've been sending them letters about every little thing. Sooner or later they'll get tired of the hassle and move away." Sarah felt her face get hot with anger. She was right. Karen Whitfield was trying to force them to leave. The complaints were not real. They were just harassment. Rex and Luna could sense Sarah's anger. They came and sat beside her. Rex put his big head on her leg. Luna pressed against her side. They always knew when she was upset. "It's okay, boys," Sarah whispered. "We're not going anywhere." But the harassment got worse. Sarah would find her. Trash cans knocked over in the morning. Someone put dog waste on her front steps. Someone called the city and made false reports about her yard and house. The worst part was the way some neighbors started acting. People who had been friendly before now crossed the street when they saw her coming. Children were told not to play near her house. Some people whispered and pointed when she walked by. Not everyone was mean. Mrs. Johnson still brought cookies and talked to the dogs. The Smith family still waved and said hello. A few other neighbors told Sarah they thought the HOA was being unfair. But many people seemed to believe the lies that Karen Whitfield was spreading. "Maybe we should move," David said one night after finding paint on their car. "This is supposed to be our peaceful retirement. Instead, we're fighting every day." Sarah looked at Rex and Luna sleeping by the fireplace. They had served their country with honor. They deserved to rest in a safe, comfortable home. She had served, too. She had earned the right to live wherever she wanted. "No," Sarah said firmly. "We're not running away. This is our home. We have every right to be here." "But what if it gets worse?" David asked. "Then we'll deal with it," Sarah said. "I didn't back down from the enemy in Afghanistan. I'm not backing down from a racist HOA president in my own neighborhood." The next morning, Sarah found another letter. This one was different. It said there would be a special HOA meeting about neighborhood safety concerns. It said all residents were required to attend. The meeting was scheduled for the following Friday evening. Sarah knew this meeting was about her and the dogs. Karen Whitfield was going to try to turn the whole neighborhood against them. She was going to claim the dogs were dangerous. She was going to try to make new rules to force Sarah's family to leave. Sarah spent the week preparing. She gathered all the letters she had received. She printed out the photos she had taken. She got copies of Rex and Luna's military service records. She got letters from her old neighbors in their last town, saying what good neighbors they had been. She also researched the HOA rules and state laws. She learned about her rights as a homeowner. She learned about discrimination laws. She was ready for a fight. "Remember," David said the night before the meeting, "stay calm. Don't let them make you angry. Use your military training." Sarah nodded. She knew David was right. In the military, she had learned to stay cool under pressure. She had learned to think clearly when people were trying to hurt her. She would need those skills tomorrow night. Rex and Luna seemed to know something important was happening. They stayed close to Sarah all day. They watched her carefully with their intelligent eyes. They had always been able to read her moods. "Don't worry, boys," Sarah told them. "Tomorrow night we fight for our home." Friday evening came too quickly. Sarah dressed in her best clothes and gathered all her papers. David checked his watch and looked nervous. "We should leave Rex and Luna here," David said. "This meeting might get heated." "No," Sarah said firmly. "They have every right to be there. The meeting is about them. They should be present." Sarah clipped leashes onto both dogs. Rex and Luna wore their service dog vests with patches showing their military ranks and medals. They walked calmly beside Sarah as the family headed to the community center. The community center was packed. Sarah had never seen so many neighbors in one place. People filled every chair and stood along the walls. As soon as Sarah walked in with the dogs, the room got quiet. Everyone turned to stare. Karen Whitfield stood at the front of the room behind a long table. She wore an expensive blue suit and had her blonde hair pulled back tightly. Next to her sat 4 other HOA board members. They all looked serious and unfriendly. "Please find seats quickly," Karen said into a microphone. "We have important business to discuss tonight." Sarah and David found 2 empty chairs near the back. Rex and Luna lay down quietly beside them. The dogs looked around the room with alert eyes, but they stayed perfectly still. Mrs. Johnson turned around and smiled at Sarah. "Don't worry, dear," she whispered. "You have more friends here than you know." Karen called the meeting to order. She talked about normal HOA business first. She discussed the budget and some new landscaping rules. Sarah could tell she was waiting to bring up the main topic. Finally, Karen's voice changed. She looked directly at Sarah. "Now we need to discuss a serious safety concern that has been brought to my attention," she said. "Several residents have expressed worry about dangerous animals in our neighborhood. As you all know, we have rules about pets. All pets must be registered with the HOA. All pets must be controlled at all times, and all pets must not disturb other residents." Sarah felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She had learned in the military to never show fear or anger to the enemy. "I have received multiple complaints about 2 large dogs," Karen continued. "These animals are not normal pets. They are military attack dogs. They have been trained to hurt people. They pose a serious threat to our children and families." A man in the front row raised his hand. "Are you talking about the Martinez family dogs?" he asked. "I cannot name specific residents," Karen said. "But yes, we are discussing the dogs that recently moved into our neighborhood." A woman near the middle stood up. "Those dogs seem very well behaved to me," she said. "I've seen them on walks. They don't bark or jump on people." "That's exactly the problem," Karen said. "Military dogs are trained to be quiet before they attack. They give no warning. One minute they seem calm, the next minute they could kill someone." Sarah wanted to stand up and shout. Everything Karen was saying was wrong. Rex and Luna had never hurt an innocent person. They had saved lives, not taken them. But she forced herself to stay seated and stay quiet. Another man stood up. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" he said. "I am proposing new rules," Karen said. She held up a piece of paper. "First, no military or police dogs will be allowed in Willowbrook. Second, any current residents with such animals must remove them within 30 days. Third, any animal over 50 pounds must be kept inside at all times." The room exploded with voices. People started talking and arguing all at once. Some people nodded and agreed with Karen. Others looked angry and shook their heads. Mrs. Johnson stood up. Her voice was loud and clear. "This is discrimination," she said. "You cannot make rules that target specific families. These dogs are retired heroes. They served our country." "They're dangerous weapons," Karen shot back. "Would you want a retired tank parked in your neighbor's yard? These animals are the same thing." A young father raised his hand. "My kids have met those dogs," he said. "They were gentle and friendly. My daughter loves them." "Your daughter has been lucky so far," Karen said. "But what happens when something triggers their attack training? What happens when they decide your child is a threat?" Sarah could not stay quiet anymore. She stood up slowly. Rex and Luna immediately stood too, flanking her on both sides. The room got quiet again. "May I speak?" Sarah asked. Her voice was calm and steady. Karen looked like she wanted to say no, but too many people were watching. "You have 3 minutes," she said. Sarah walked to the front of the room. Rex and Luna walked beside her with perfect discipline. Their leashes were loose. They needed no pulling or forcing. They moved like they were part of Sarah's body. "My name is Sarah Martinez," she said. "These are Rex and Luna. We served together for 8 years in Afghanistan and Iraq." She reached into her folder and pulled out photos. Rex found 17 roadside bombs before they could kill American soldiers. Luna tracked down 3 terrorists who had kidnapped children. Together, they saved hundreds of lives. She held up more papers. "These are their service records. These are letters from commanding officers. These are citations for bravery. Rex and Luna are heroes, not weapons." Someone in the crowd started clapping. Then more people joined in. Soon, half the room was applauding. "They are trained to protect," Sarah continued when the clapping stopped. "But they only use force when ordered to by their handler. They only attack people who are trying to hurt innocent people. They have never, ever hurt a child or an innocent person." Karen interrupted. "That's what you say," she said. "But how do we know? How do we know they won't snap someday?" Sarah looked around the room. She made eye contact with as many people as possible. "Because I trained them," she said. "Because I know them. Because they have hearts full of love, not hate." She gave a small hand signal. Rex and Luna immediately sat down. Another signal and they lay down. Another signal and they rolled over on their backs, showing their bellies in a sign of complete trust. "Does this look like the behavior of dangerous attack animals?" Sarah asked. A little girl in the front row raised her hand. "Can I pet them?" she asked. Before Karen could stop her, the girl jumped up and ran to Sarah. Her parents looked worried but did not stop her. Sarah knelt down next to the girl. "What's your name?" she asked. "Emma," the girl said. "Emma, would you like to meet Rex and Luna?" The girl nodded eagerly. Sarah gave another signal. Both dogs sat up and moved slowly toward Emma. They sat down in front of her and waited. "You can pet them," Sarah said. "They love children." Emma reached out and touched Rex's head. He closed his eyes and leaned into her touch. Luna moved closer and gently licked Emma's hand. The little girl giggled with delight. "They're so soft," Emma said, "and they smell good." The room was completely silent. Everyone watched as Emma hugged both dogs. Rex and Luna accepted her hugs patiently, their tails wagging slowly. Emma's father came forward. "I'm sorry," he said to Sarah. "I believed some of the things people were saying. But I can see these are good dogs." "Thank you," Sarah said. Karen's face was red with anger. "This proves nothing," she said. "The dogs could still be dangerous. We cannot take chances with our children's safety." But Sarah could see that many people in the room had changed their minds. They had seen Rex and Luna with their own eyes. They had seen how gentle and well-trained the dogs were. "I have one more thing to say," Sarah announced. She reached into her folder and pulled out all the HOA letters she had received. "Mrs. Whitfield has been harassing my family since the day we moved in," Sarah said. "She has sent us false complaints about our grass, our mailbox, our parking, and our dogs. She has been trying to force us to leave this neighborhood." She held up the letters. "I have photos proving that other houses have the same grass length, the same mailbox colors, the same parking situations. But only my family gets complaint letters." People in the crowd started murmuring. Some looked angry. "This is not about safety," Sarah said. "This is about discrimination. Mrs. Whitfield does not want my family in this neighborhood, and she is using the HOA to try to force us out." Karen stood up quickly. "That's a lie," she said. "I enforce the rules equally for everyone." "Then why do I have 12 complaint letters in 3 weeks while my neighbors have never received any?" Sarah asked. The room erupted in angry voices again. This time, most of the anger seemed directed at Karen, not at Sarah. As the arguing continued, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. Through the window, she could see police cars pulling into the parking lot. Blue and red lights flashed in the darkness. Karen was smiling now. She had called the police. Sarah realized this. Whole meeting had been a trap. 3 police officers walked into the community center. Sarah recognized 2 of them from around the neighborhood. The third one was older with gray hair and sergeant stripes on his uniform. The room got quiet when the police entered. Sarah felt Rex and Luna tense beside her. They could sense her stress and the change in the room's energy. Someone called about a disturbance, the sergeant said. He looked around the room with stern eyes. Karen stepped forward quickly. "Thank you for coming. Sergeant Williams," she said. "We have a situation with dangerous animals. The owner is being confrontational and refusing to control them." Sarah felt anger rise in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. This was exactly what Karen wanted. She wanted Sarah to lose her temper so the police would arrest her. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step away from those dogs," one of the younger officers said to Sarah. His hand moved toward his weapon. "Officer, there's no disturbance here," Sarah said calmly. "These dogs are under complete control. They haven't moved from this spot." "We got a report that they were threatening people," the sergeant said. "We need to secure the animals first. Then we can talk." Mrs. Johnson stood up from her chair. "That's not true," she said loudly. "Those dogs haven't threatened anyone. They've been lying quietly the whole time." "A child was endangered," Karen added quickly. The dogs approached a little girl without permission. Emma's father stepped forward. "That's a lie," he said angrily. "My daughter asked to pet the dogs. The owner was completely responsible about it." "Sir, please step back," the younger officer said. "Officer, we need to handle this situation." Sarah could see things were getting out of control. The police had already decided she was the problem before they even understood what was happening. This was a dangerous situation. "Officers, I'm a military veteran," Sarah said, keeping her voice level. "These are retired military working dogs. We're all trained professionals." "I don't care what you used to be," the sergeant said. "Right now we have reports of aggressive dogs and a disorderly person. We need you to surrender those animals immediately." "On what grounds?" Sarah asked. "What law have I broken? What crime have these dogs committed?" The sergeant's face got red. "Don't give me attitude, lady. We're trying to keep people safe here." "From what?" Sarah asked. "From dogs that are lying quietly on the floor." One of the younger officers moved closer. "Ma'am, you need to comply with our orders or you'll be arrested for obstruction." Sarah realized the situation was spiraling out of control. The officers weren't listening to reason. They had already made up their minds based on Karen's lies. She needed to document everything that was happening. She reached slowly into her pocket for her phone. "I'm just getting my phone to record this interaction," she said clearly. "I have the right to record police in public." "Put your hands where I can see them," the younger officer shouted. He pulled out his weapon and pointed it at Sarah. The room erupted in screams. People jumped up from their chairs and backed away. Emma started crying and ran to her father. Sarah immediately raised both hands above her head. "I'm reaching for my phone," she said loudly. "I am not armed. I am not resisting." Rex and Luna had not moved from their down position, but Sarah could see their muscles tense. They were trained to protect their handler. If the officers attacked Sarah, the dogs might respond to defend her. "Rex, Luna, stay," Sarah commanded firmly. The dogs relaxed slightly but remained alert. "See how she controls those attack dogs," Karen said to the police. "She could order them to attack any of us at any time." "That's enough," Mrs. Johnson yelled. "You called the police with false information. These people have done nothing wrong." "Ma'am, you need to calm down," the sergeant said to Mrs. Johnson. "We have the situation under control." "No, you don't," said a man's voice from the back of the room. Sarah turned and saw a young man with a phone in his hand. "I've been recording this whole thing. You pulled a gun on an unarmed veteran for trying to use her phone." "You need to stop recording," the younger officer said. "No, I don't," the man replied. "This is a public meeting in a public building. I have every right to record." More people started taking out their phones. Sarah could see the officers were getting nervous. They had expected to come in and handle a simple situation, but now they were being recorded by dozens of people. "Officers, may I suggest we all take a step back," David said. He had been quiet until now, but Sarah could see he was worried. "My wife and dogs are clearly not a threat to anyone. Perhaps we can discuss this calmly." "Who are you?" the sergeant asked. "I'm David Martinez, that's my wife Sarah. I'm also a military veteran, I served as a medic." "I don't care if you're both war heroes," the sergeant said. "We have a job to do here." "What job exactly?" asked a woman's voice. Sarah turned and saw it was Emma's mother. "What crime are you investigating? What law has been broken?" The sergeant looked uncomfortable. He had pulled a gun on a veteran and her service dogs based on a false report, and now the whole thing was being recorded. "We received a report of aggressive animals and a disorderly person," he said. "From who?" Emma's father demanded. "Because I was here the whole time and I didn't see any aggressive animals or disorderly people until you showed up." Karen stepped forward again. "I made the report," she said. "As HOA president, it's my duty to protect this community." "You lied to the police," Mrs. Johnson said angrily. "You filed a false report." "I did no such thing," Karen replied. "Those dogs are dangerous and that woman was being threatening." "Ma'am, we need you to put those dogs in your vehicle," the younger officer said to Sarah. "Then we can sort this out." "Officer, I respectfully decline," Sarah said. "My dogs have broken no laws, they have threatened no one. They are service animals and I have every right to have them with me." "They're not service dogs," Karen said quickly. "Service dogs are for blind people and disabled people. These are attack dogs." "Actually, they are service dogs," Sarah replied. "I have PTSD from my military service. Rex and Luna are trained to help me manage my symptoms. I have all the proper documentation." This was true. After Sarah returned from overseas, she had struggled with nightmares and anxiety. Rex and Luna had been retrained to help her with these problems. They could wake her from nightmares and calm her during panic attacks. The sergeant looked frustrated. The situation was getting more complicated, not simpler. "Ma'am, service dog or not, we still need to secure these animals." "Why?" Sarah asked. "What specific threat do they pose right now?" "They could attack someone," the younger officer said. "Based on what evidence?" Sarah asked. "They haven't barked, growled, or moved aggressively all evening. They've been lying." On the floor the entire time, a new voice spoke from the crowd. "Officers, I'm a lawyer." A well-dressed man stood up. "This woman and her dogs have broken no laws. You have no legal grounds to confiscate her animals or arrest her." The sergeant's face got redder. "Sir, we don't need legal advice from the peanut gallery." "Actually, you do," the lawyer said. "Because you're about to violate this woman's constitutional rights. You're acting on a false report from someone with a clear bias against her." Sarah could see the officers were getting more frustrated and angry. In her military experience, that made them more dangerous, not less. Frustrated people with guns made bad decisions. "Officers," Sarah said carefully, "I propose a compromise. I'll put my dogs in my car, but I want the record to show that I'm doing this voluntarily to de-escalate the situation, not because they've done anything wrong." "No," David said firmly. "Don't give in to this harassment." But Sarah could see the situation was about to explode. The young officer still had his gun out. More people were recording. The crowd was getting angry. "It's okay," Sarah told David. "Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win the war." She turned to Rex and Luna. "Come on, boys, let's go for a ride." But as Sarah moved toward the door, the younger officer stepped in front of her. "Not so fast," he said. "We still need to write a report about this incident. You're not going anywhere." The young officer blocked Sarah's path to the door. His gun was still in his hand, pointed down but ready. Sarah stopped walking and kept her hands visible. "Officer, what exactly do you need me for?" Sarah asked calmly. "I've offered to put my dogs in the car. What else do you want?" "We need to get your information and write up what happened here," the officer said. There was a disturbance. "What disturbance?" asked the lawyer from the crowd. "A woman speaking at a public meeting? Dogs lying quietly on the floor? This is harassment, not police work." The sergeant looked angry at the lawyer. Sir, if you don't stop interfering, you'll be arrested too. For what crime? The lawyer shot back. Asking questions? This is America, not a police state. Sarah could feel the tension rising in the room. Rex and Luna were still lying down, but their ears were up and alert. They could sense that their handler was in danger. The young officer took a step closer to Sarah. Ma'am, I need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back. What? Sarah said. Are you arresting me for what? Disturbing the peace, failure to comply with police orders, and owning dangerous animals. The crowd erupted in angry shouts. She didn't disturb anything, someone yelled. The dogs haven't done anything wrong, shouted another person. This is outrageous, Mrs. Johnson said loudly. These officers are the ones disturbing the peace. As the officer reached for his handcuffs, something changed in Rex and Luna. Sarah had seen this before in combat situations. The dogs had switched from rest mode to protection mode. Rex stood up slowly. Luna followed a second later. They didn't bark or growl. They didn't show their teeth. But something in their posture changed completely. They moved from pets to warriors in an instant. Both dogs stepped forward and positioned themselves between Sarah and the officers. They stood perfectly still, but every muscle in their bodies was ready for action. The change was so dramatic that the officer with the gun stepped back. The dogs are becoming aggressive, he said loudly. No, they're not, Sarah said quickly. They're protecting me. It's what they're trained to do when they sense a threat to their handler. Tell them to stand down, the sergeant ordered. They will stand down when you stop threatening me, Sarah replied. Rex and Luna have never attacked anyone who wasn't trying to hurt innocent people, but they will defend me if necessary. The officer with the gun raised it again, this time pointing it at Rex. Call off your dogs or I'll shoot them. The room went completely silent. Even the people who had been arguing stopped talking. Everyone stared at the officer pointing his gun at a military hero dog. You're going to shoot a decorated war veteran? Mrs. Johnson asked in shock. A dog that served our country? Rex looked up at the gun pointed at him. He didn't move or flinch. He had been shot at by enemies before. He was not afraid. Luna moved slightly closer to Sarah's side. Sarah felt her heart racing, but she kept her voice steady. Officer, these dogs have saved more American lives than you ever will. If you shoot them, you'll be on camera murdering military heroes. She gestured around the room. Look around you. Everyone is recording this. The whole world will see you kill dogs that serve their country with honor. The young officer looked around nervously. He could see dozens of phones pointed at him. He was one mistake away from being famous for all the wrong reasons. Ma'am, control your animals, the sergeant said. But his voice was less confident now. I am controlling them, Sarah said. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're protecting their handler from what they perceive as a threat. We're not threatening you, the officer with the gun said. You're pointing a gun at me and my dogs, Sarah replied. You're trying to arrest me for imaginary crimes. How is that not a threat? David stepped forward carefully. Officers, I'm going to reach into my pocket very slowly and get some papers. Don't shoot. The sergeant nodded tensely. David pulled out a folder. These are my wife's military records. These are the dog's service records. These are letters from commanding officers. These prove that Sarah and her dogs are trained professionals who have served our country with distinction. He held up the papers. Sarah has more training in de-escalating dangerous situations than probably all three of you combined. She's trying to keep this peaceful. The lawyer spoke up again. Officers, you're in a very dangerous legal position right now. You've drawn weapons on a veteran and her service dogs based on a false complaint. You have no evidence of any crime. Everything you're doing is being recorded. If you hurt those dogs or arrest this woman without cause, the lawsuit will be enormous, he continued. The city will pay millions and your careers will be over. The sergeant looked uncertain for the first time. Sarah could see him thinking through the situation. This had not gone the way anyone expected. Karen Whitfield tried to speak again. Officers, don't listen to them. These dogs are dangerous. They need to be removed from our neighborhood. Ma'am, please be quiet, the sergeant said to Karen. Sarah was surprised. He was starting to realize that Karen might have misled them. "Officer," Sarah said calmly, "I'm going to give my dogs a command now. I want everyone to see how well trained they are." Before anyone could object, Sarah gave a quiet hand signal. Rex and Luna immediately sat down. They were still alert and watching the officers, but they no longer looked ready to attack. "Another command," Sarah said. She made a different signal. Both dogs lay down and put their heads on their paws. They looked completely relaxed. "One more," Sarah said. She whistled softly. Rex and Luna rolled over on their backs and showed their bellies to the officers. The room was amazed. In 10 seconds, Sarah had taken 2 dogs from protection mode to complete submission. The officers stared in disbelief. "This is what real training looks like," Sarah said. "This is the difference between dangerous animals and professional working dogs. Rex and Luna will only use force if I command them to, or if someone actually attacks me." "How do we know you won't command them to attack us?" the young officer asked. "Because I'm not a criminal," Sarah said. "Because I'm a decorated veteran who took an oath to protect Americans, not hurt them. Because these dogs and I have spent years risking our lives to keep people like you safe." Emma, the little girl who had petted the dogs earlier, broke away from her parents and ran toward Sarah. "Don't hurt the nice doggies," she cried. Her father tried to catch her, but she was too fast. She threw her arms around Rex's neck as he lay on his back. "Emma, no!" her mother screamed, but Rex just licked the little girl's face gently. Luna wagged her tail. Emma giggled and hugged both dogs. "See?" Emma said to the officers. "They're good dogs. They wouldn't hurt anybody." The officer with the gun slowly lowered it. He looked embarrassed and confused. The situation had gotten completely out of his control. The sergeant stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're going to need to write a report about this incident," he said to Sarah. "But I think we can work something out that doesn't involve arrests or removing your animals." Sarah nodded. "I appreciate that, Sergeant, but I want the record to show that this whole situation was caused by false complaints from someone trying to harass my family." She looked directly at Karen. "And I want to know what you plan to do about people who file false police reports." Karen's face was white with anger and fear. Her plan had backfired completely. Instead of getting Sarah arrested, she had made herself look like a liar and a racist in front of the whole neighborhood. But Sarah knew this wasn't over. Karen would try something else. People like her never gave up easily. As if reading her thoughts, Karen spoke up one last time. "This isn't finished," she said quietly. "Those animals don't belong in this neighborhood, and neither do you." Rex and Luna heard the threat in Karen's voice. They sat up and looked at her with intelligent, alert eyes. They would remember her scent and her voice. If she ever tried to hurt their handler, they would be ready. After Karen's threat, the room fell silent. Everyone had heard her words clearly. Even the police officers looked uncomfortable. Sergeant Williams stepped closer to Sarah. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "We received what we thought was a legitimate complaint about dangerous animals. I can see now that the situation was misrepresented to us." Sarah nodded but kept her guard up. "Sergeant, what happens now?" "Now we write an accurate report about what really happened here," he said, "and we have a serious talk with the person who filed the false complaint." He turned to Karen Whitfield. "Ma'am, filing false police reports is a crime. Making up stories about dangerous animals wastes police resources and puts people at risk." Karen's face turned red. "I didn't file a false report. Those dogs are dangerous military weapons." "Ma'am, I've been a police officer for 20 years, the sergeant said. "I've seen dangerous dogs. These animals are clearly well-trained and under control. They've shown no aggressive behavior whatsoever." The lawyer from the crowd spoke up. "Sergeant, I'd like to get your name and badge number for the record. Mrs. Martinez may want to file a complaint about how this situation was handled." "Of course," the sergeant said. He handed the lawyer his business card. "I understand completely. This should have been handled differently from the start." The young officer who had drawn his gun looked ashamed. "Ma'am, I'm sorry I pointed my weapon at you and your dogs," he said to Sarah. I reacted based on the information we were given. Officer, what's your name? Sarah asked. Officer Davis, ma'am. Officer Davis, I accept your apology, Sarah said. But I want you to understand something. Rex and Luna are not just dogs to me. They're my partners, they're heroes. They've saved countless lives. Pointing a gun at them is like pointing a gun at a fellow veteran. Officer Davis nodded. I understand now, ma'am. I'll remember that. David pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of the officers' badges and name tags. For our records, he explained. Mrs. Johnson walked over to Sarah. Honey, are you okay? She asked. I'm fine, Sarah said. Rex and Luna are fine too. We've been through worse than this. But Sarah wasn't really fine. Her hands were shaking slightly. She felt angry and hurt. She had served her country for 8 years. She had risked her life to protect Americans, and now she was being treated like a criminal in her own neighborhood. Rex and Luna sensed her distress. They moved closer to her sides and pressed against her legs. This was part of their training as therapy dogs. They could feel when Sarah was having anxiety and knew how to comfort her. Emma's father approached Sarah. Mrs. Martinez, I want to apologize for not speaking up sooner, he said. Some of us have been hearing rumors about you and your dogs, but we should have gotten to know you ourselves instead of listening to gossip. Thank you, Sarah said. That means a lot. Would you and your family like to come to dinner this weekend? He asked. My wife makes great barbecue, and Emma would love to play with Rex and Luna. Sarah smiled for the first time all evening. We'd love that. More neighbors came forward to introduce themselves and apologize. Sarah realized that most people in Willowbrook were good, decent folks. They had just been misled by Karen and a few others. Mrs. Martinez, said a woman with gray hair. I'm Susan Chen. I live on Maple Street. I want you to know that not everyone agrees with Mrs. Whitfield. Some of us have been talking and we're going to run for the HOA board in the next election. That's wonderful, Sarah said. Every neighborhood needs fair leadership. Karen Whitfield gathered her papers and started to leave. She looked furious and defeated. As she walked past Sarah, she stopped. This isn't over, Karen whispered. I'll find a way to get rid of you. Rex's ears perked up. He had heard Karen's threat. Luna also looked at Karen with watchful eyes. Ma'am, I heard that, Sergeant Williams said. He had been standing close enough to overhear. That sounds like harassment. To me. I was just leaving, Karen said quickly. Yes, you were, the sergeant replied. And I suggest you be very careful about any future complaints you file. We'll be watching them closely. After Karen left, the mood in the room relaxed. People started talking normally again. Some neighbors came over to pet Rex and Luna. The dogs enjoyed the attention and proved once again how gentle they were. The lawyer introduced himself to Sarah. My name is Robert Kim, he said. I specialize in civil rights cases. If you decide you want to take legal action against the HOA or anyone else, I'd be happy to help. Thank you, Sarah said. I'll keep that in mind. You should also know that what happened here tonight was clearly discrimination, he continued. You have grounds for a lawsuit if you want to pursue it. David looked interested. What kind of lawsuit? Housing discrimination, harassment, filing false police reports, violation of civil rights, Mr. Kim said. The HOA targeted your family based on prejudice, not legitimate complaints. Sarah thought about it. Part of her wanted to fight back. Hard. She wanted to make Karen and the others pay for what they had done. But another part of her just wanted to live peacefully with her family and dogs. I'll think about it, she said finally. As the meeting broke up, Mrs. Johnson walked out with Sarah and David. Honey, you handled that beautifully, she said. You stayed calm and professional even when that officer pointed a gun at you. Military training, Sarah said. We learned to stay cool under pressure. Well, it served you well tonight, Mrs. Johnson said. And those dogs of yours are amazing. The way they protected you but stayed under control was incredible. Rex and Luna walked calmly beside Sarah as they headed to their car. They were tired but alert. The evening had been stressful for them too. "Good boys," Sarah said, patting both dogs. "You did everything right tonight." As they reached their car, David turned to Sarah. "Are you really okay?" he asked. "That was pretty intense." "I'm okay," Sarah said, "but I'm also angry. We shouldn't have to go through this just to live in our own home." "What do you want to do?" David asked. Sarah looked back at the community center. Most of the neighbors were gone now, but she could see a few people still talking in small groups. Some of them waved at her. "I want to stay and fight," she said. "This is our home. We have just as much right to be here as anyone else. I'm not going to let people like Karen Whitfield scare us away." "Even if it means more trouble?" David asked. "Especially if it means more trouble," Sarah said. "Rex and Luna didn't serve their country just to be treated like dangerous animals. I didn't serve my country just to be harassed by racist neighbors." She opened the car door for the dogs. They jumped in and settled down on their blankets in the back seat. "Besides," Sarah said with a small smile, "Karen Whitfield has no idea what she's up against. She thinks she can bully a veteran and her military dogs. She's about to learn how wrong she is." As they drove home, Sarah started making plans. She would document every interaction with Karen and the HOA. She would build relationships with the good neighbors. She would learn everything about HOA rules and civil rights laws. If Karen wanted a war, Sarah would give her one. But it would be fought with law and truth, not lies and harassment. Rex and Luna dozed in the back seat, but their ears stayed alert. They knew their handler was planning something. They would be ready to support her, whatever came next. 3 days after the community center meeting, Sarah woke up to find police cars in her driveway again. This time there were 4 cars and 6 officers. She looked out her bedroom window and felt her heart sink. "David, wake up," she said, shaking her husband's shoulder. "The police are back." David sat up quickly and looked outside. What could they want now? Rex and Luna were already alert. They had heard the car doors slamming and were standing by the bedroom door, waiting for instructions. Sarah got dressed quickly and went downstairs. Through the front window, she could see Sergeant Williams talking to the other officers. At least he was there. He had been reasonable during the last incident. The doorbell rang. Rex and Luna barked twice, then stopped, when Sarah gave them a signal. "Good morning, officers," Sarah said as she opened the door. "What can I do for you?" "Ma'am, we have a search warrant for your property," Sergeant Williams said. He looked uncomfortable. "We received a report that you have illegal weapons and explosives on your property." Sarah's mouth fell open. "What? That's impossible. Who made that report?" "I can't tell you that, ma'am," the sergeant said, "but we need to search your house and yard." Sarah's mind raced. This had to be Karen's doing. She was escalating her attacks. "May I see the warrant?" Sarah asked. The sergeant handed her the papers. Sarah read them carefully. The warrant said an anonymous tip had reported military explosives and weapons at her address. "Sergeant, this is another false report," Sarah said. "I'm a retired veteran, not a terrorist. I don't have any explosives or illegal weapons." "Ma'am, we have to investigate all reports like this," he said, "for national security reasons." David came downstairs, with his hands visible. "Officers, I'm David Martinez. This is my house too. We have nothing to hide, but this is clearly harassment." "Sir, please step outside while we conduct the search," one of the other officers said. Sarah, David, Rex, and Luna stood in their front yard while 6 police officers searched their house. Neighbors started coming outside to see what was happening. Sarah felt embarrassed and angry. Mrs. Johnson hurried over from next door. "What's going on, dear?" she asked. "Someone reported that we have explosives and weapons," Sarah said. "It's completely false." "This is ridiculous," Mrs. Johnson said. "You're the most law-abiding people I know." After an hour, the officers came outside empty-handed. They had found nothing because there was nothing to find. "Ma'am, we didn't find any weapons or explosives," Sergeant Williams said. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." "Sergeant, this is the second false report about my family in less than a week," Sarah said. "Someone is using the police to harass us." I understand your frustration, he said. We take false reports very seriously. What are you going to do about it? David asked. We're investigating the source of these complaints, the sergeant said. If we find evidence of false reporting, we'll file charges. After the police left, Sarah sat on her front porch with Rex and Luna. She felt defeated. No matter what she did, Karen seemed to find new ways to make their lives miserable. Mrs. Johnson brought her a cup of coffee. Honey, you look exhausted, she said. I am exhausted, Sarah said. I just want to live peacefully in my own home. Don't give up, Mrs. Johnson said. Most of us are on your side. Karen is making enemies, not friends. That afternoon, Robert Kim, the lawyer from the meeting, called Sarah. Mrs. Martinez, I heard about what happened this morning, he said. I think it's time to take legal action. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I mean, we file a federal civil rights lawsuit, he said. This is clear harassment based on discrimination. We can sue Karen Whitfield, the HOA, and possibly the city for allowing this to continue. Sarah thought about it. She had been trying to handle things peacefully, but Karen wasn't giving up. What would that involve? Sarah asked. We'd file papers in federal court claiming that your civil rights have been violated, Mr. Kim explained. We'd ask for damages and an injunction to stop the harassment. How long would it take? 6 months to a year, maybe longer, he said. But it would send a clear message that this behavior won't be tolerated. That evening, Sarah and David talked about their options. They sat in their backyard while Rex and Luna played with a ball. I'm tired of being on defense, Sarah said. Every day I wonder what Karen is going to do next. What false report she'll file, what lie she'll tell. So you want to sue? David asked. I want to fight back, Sarah said. We served our country. We earned the right to live wherever we want. I'm not going to let some racist HOA president drive us away. The next morning, Sarah called Mr. Kim and told him to start preparing the lawsuit, but Karen wasn't done. 2 days later, Sarah came home from grocery shopping to find animal control officers in her yard. They were looking at Rex and Luna through the fence. What's going on? Sarah asked. Ma'am, we received a report that you have dangerous animals without proper licenses, one of the officers said. Sarah sighed. Let me guess. Anonymous report? Yes, ma'am. Sarah went into the house and came back with a folder full of papers. She had started keeping all of Rex and Luna's documents in one place. Here are their licenses, she said. Here are their vaccination records. Here are their service dog certifications. Here are their military service records. The animal control officer looked through the papers. Everything seems to be in order, he said. These dogs are clearly legal and properly registered. Officer, this is the 3rd false report about my family this week, Sarah said. Someone is harassing us. We'll make a note of that in our report, he said. Sorry to bother you. After the animal control officers left, Sarah called Mr. Kim again. We need to move faster on that lawsuit, she said. Karen is escalating. She's called the police twice and animal control once, all based on lies. I'll file the papers tomorrow, Mr. Kim said. We'll ask for an emergency injunction to stop the harassment. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She was angry and frustrated. She got up and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. Rex and Luna followed her, sensing her distress. As she stood at the kitchen window, Sarah saw something that made her blood run cold. There were 3 people in her backyard, moving around with flashlights. Sarah's military training kicked in. She grabbed her phone and called 911, then quietly woke David. There are intruders in our backyard, she whispered. David got up and looked out the window. I see them, he said. Rex and Luna sensed danger. They moved to the back door and stood alert, waiting for commands. Stay quiet, boys, Sarah whispered. Let's see what they're doing. The 3 figures seemed to be planting something near the fence line. Sarah used her phone to record them through the window. After 5 minutes, the intruders left through a gap in the back fence. Sarah waited another 10 minutes, then called the police. This is Sarah Martinez on Elm Street, she told the dispatcher. I just witnessed 3 people trespassing in my backyard. They planted something near my fence. Sergeant Williams arrived 20 minutes later with 2 other officers. They searched the backyard with flashlights and found 3 small packages buried near the fence. "Ma'am, you need to step back," the sergeant said. "These could be explosive devices." The bomb squad was called. Sarah, David, and the dogs had to evacuate their house and wait across the street. 2 hours later, the bomb squad finished their work. The packages weren't real explosives, but they were made to look like bombs. Fake explosive devices, the bomb squad leader told Sergeant Williams. Designed to look real to cause a scare. Sergeant Williams walked over to Sarah. "Ma'am, someone planted fake bombs in your yard," he said. "This is serious criminal activity." "Sergeant, I recorded the 3 people who planted them," Sarah said. She showed him the video on her phone. "Can you identify any of them?" he asked. "It was too dark to see faces clearly," Sarah said, "but I have a pretty good idea who's behind this." "Mrs. Whitfield?" he asked. "I can't prove it," Sarah said. "But the timing is awfully suspicious." The sergeant nodded. "We're going to dust those fake devices for fingerprints. We're also going to investigate this as attempted terrorism." "Attempted terrorism?" David asked. "Yes, sir," the sergeant said. "Planting fake bombs is a federal crime. It's designed to cause fear and panic." Sarah felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief that the bombs were fake, but anger that someone had escalated to this level. "Sergeant, this has to stop," she said. "Someone is going to get hurt." "I agree completely," he said. "We're going to find out who did this and arrest them." As the police finished their investigation, Sarah realized that Karen had made a serious mistake. Planting fake bombs was a federal crime. If they could prove she was involved, she would go to prison. "Rex, Luna," Sarah said quietly as they walked back to their house. "I think the war just became a real war." The fake bomb incident changed everything. Within 2 days, FBI agents arrived to investigate the attempted terrorism. Federal crimes meant federal investigators, and they took the case very seriously. Agent Maria Santos knocked on Sarah's door on a Tuesday morning. She was a professional woman in her 40s with kind but serious eyes. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm Agent Santos from the FBI," she said, showing her badge. "I need to ask you some questions about the devices found in your yard." Sarah invited her in. Rex and Luna watched the agent carefully but remained calm. "Mrs. Martinez, we've been investigating the harassment you've been experiencing," Agent Santos said. "This appears to be part of a pattern of escalating criminal behavior." "What have you found?" Sarah asked. "We've traced the phone calls that led to the false police reports," the agent said. "They all came from the same phone number. We've also found fingerprints on the fake explosive devices." Sarah felt her heart beat faster. "Whose fingerprints?" "I can't give you all the details yet," Agent Santos said, "but we expect to make arrests soon." The next morning, Sarah was walking Rex and Luna when she saw police cars at Karen Whitfield's house. Officers were leading Karen out in handcuffs. Mrs. Johnson hurried over to Sarah. "Did you see that?" she asked excitedly. "They arrested Karen." "I saw," Sarah said. She felt relieved, but also sad. She had never wanted anyone to go to jail. She had just wanted to live peacefully. Agent Santos called Sarah that afternoon. "Mrs. Martinez, we've arrested 3 people in connection with the harassment and fake bombing," she said. "Karen Whitfield, her son Michael, and a neighbor named Tom Bradley." "What will happen to them?" Sarah asked. "They're facing federal charges for attempted terrorism, filing false police reports, and civil rights violations," the agent said. "If convicted, they could face 10 years in prison." The news spread quickly through Willowbrook. Most neighbors were shocked. They had known Karen was difficult, but they hadn't realized she was a criminal. Mr. Kim called Sarah that evening. "Mrs. Martinez, this changes our civil lawsuit completely," he said. "We now have criminal convictions to support our case. The damages could be substantial." "How substantial?" David asked. "Hundreds of thousands of dollars," Mr. Kim said. "Maybe more. The HOA's insurance company will want to settle quickly." Over the next few weeks, more details came out. Karen had recruited her son and Tom Bradley to help her drive Sarah's family away. They had made all the false reports. They had planted the fake bombs. They had also been planning to poison Rex and Luna. The community was horrified. A special HOA meeting was called to remove the remaining board members who had supported Karen. Mrs. Johnson was elected as the new HOA president. Her first act was to send Sarah an official apology letter. Mrs. Martinez, the letter said, "The Willowbrook HOA deeply regrets the treatment your family received. We are implementing new anti-discrimination policies to ensure this never happens again." 3 months later, Karen Whitfield pled guilty to federal terrorism charges. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Her son got 3 years. Tom Bradley got 2 years. The civil lawsuit was settled out of court. The HOA's insurance company paid Sarah and David $300,000 in damages. They also had to change their rules to prevent future discrimination. Sarah used some of the money to start a nonprofit organization. It helped military veterans who faced housing discrimination. She called it Heroes Housing Rights. "Every veteran deserves a safe place to live," Sarah said at the organization's first fundraiser. Rex, Luna, and I learned that the hard way. Rex and Luna became famous in their own right. A local newspaper wrote a story about the hero dogs who faced down hate. A national magazine picked up the story. Soon, people from all over the country were writing letters of support. The dogs received a special award from the American Legion. They got medals recognizing their military service and their role in fighting discrimination. Sarah was invited to speak at veteran events around the country. She told her story to help other veterans who faced similar problems. "Don't give up," she would tell audiences. "Document everything. Get legal help. Fight back with truth and law, not anger and hatred." 6 months after Karen's arrest, Willowbrook had become a different place. The new HOA board focused on real community improvements, not harassing residents. New families moved in, including several military families. Sarah started a weekly gathering for neighborhood dogs and their owners. Rex and Luna helped train puppies and socialize rescue dogs. The same park where people once feared them became their favorite place to help other animals. Emma, the little girl who had hugged Rex and Luna during the police confrontation, became their biggest fan. She visited every week to play with them and help with the puppy training. "Mrs. Sarah," Emma said one day, "Rex and Luna are the best dogs in the whole world." "They really are," Sarah agreed, watching the 2 retired warriors gently teaching a nervous rescue dog how to play fetch. David found work at the local Veterans Administration hospital. He used his medical training to help other veterans with physical and mental health problems. "This turned out better than I expected," he told Sarah one evening as they sat on their back porch. Rex and Luna were sleeping peacefully in the grass. "How so?" Sarah asked. "We didn't just win our fight," David said. "We made the whole community better. We helped other veterans. We turned something ugly into something beautiful." Sarah nodded. "Rex and Luna taught us that," she said. "They never fought with hatred, only with duty and love. We did the same thing." 2 years later, Sarah was asked to testify before Congress about housing discrimination against veterans. She brought Rex and Luna with her to Washington. "Military. Families sacrifice everything for our country," she told the senators. "The least we can do is ensure they have safe places to live when they come home." The committee passed new laws strengthening protections for veteran families. Sarah's story had helped change federal policy. As they walked out of the Capitol building, Rex and Luna attracted attention from tourists and other visitors. Children asked to pet them. Adults thanked them for their service. "Look at that," David said, watching a group of school children learning about military working dogs from Sarah. "Who would have thought that Karen Whitfield's hatred would lead to all this good?" Sarah smiled as she watched Rex gently allow a shy child to pet his head. Luna was demonstrating some of her old search techniques for the amazed students. "I think Rex and Luna always knew," she said. "They knew that standing up to bullies makes the world safer for everyone." That evening, back home in Willowbrook, Sarah took the dogs for their usual walk around the neighborhood. People waved and called out greetings. Children ran over to say hello to Rex and Luna. At the small park in the center of the subdivision, Sarah let the dogs off their leashes to run and play. Other dog owners were there with their pets. Everyone was welcome. Sarah sat on a bench and watched Rex and Luna play with a group of neighborhood dogs. The two military heroes looked completely happy and relaxed. Mrs. Johnson joined her on the bench. "You know," the older woman said, "I think this neighborhood is better because of what happened. People learned something important about judging others." "What's that?" Sarah asked. "They learned not to," Mrs. Johnson said with a smile. As the sun set, Sarah called Rex and Luna back to her side. They walked home together, past houses full of neighbors who had become friends. In their backyard, Sarah gave both dogs their favorite treats and fresh water. She sat with them on the grass and looked up at the stars. "Good boys," she said, scratching behind their ears. "You helped teach a whole community about courage and love." Rex and Luna leaned against her, content and peaceful. They had served their country in war. They had served their family in conflict. Now they could finally rest and enjoy the home they had fought so hard to keep. Sarah looked at her house with its lights glowing warmly in the windows. She thought about all the good that had come from their struggle, the veterans they had helped, the laws they had changed, the community they had improved. "Home," she said quietly. "This is really home now." Rex and Luna wagged their tails in agreement. They had finally found their peaceful retirement, earned through service, courage, and the refusal to back down from what was right. The war was over. Love had won.